averaging 30 points per game while making more than half of your shots. If any player reached this threshold in the history of the league, you can be pretty sure that they are one of the greatest bucket getters in the NBA. And among this elite group, there's an even smaller pool of players that achieve this as guards. I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's easier to have a higher efficiency when you're Wilt or Shaq and you're just bullying players in the post. But if you're just an average height player that has to create his own shots away from the basket and still manages this same crazy efficiency, then you are just built different. Listen to this list of guards that have achieved this feat in the last 40 years. Steph Curry, obviously the greatest shooter of all time. This other guy, Michael Jordan, you might have heard of him. And then there's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? And that's it? What, no Harden on the list? No Wade? Not even Kobe? I mean, the thing is that Shai not only did this, but he's also the youngest guard to ever do it in the history of the NBA. This is a guy that nobody is talking about beating all-time great records. So how is he doing that? And what's the truth behind SGA that is making him go unnoticed? Picture this, you're watching a young high school prodigy, right? And in just 19 minutes, the guy scores 29 points, dishes 6 Magic-esque assists, and grabs 9 boards. Less than 20 minutes were enough for him to not only win the game, but also be unanimously named its MVP. Now, your first guess would be that I'm talking about the chosen one himself, LeBron James, but no, this could only be done by someone as dominant as the Black Mamba himself, right? Well, maybe, but the guy is actually the Canadian basketball genius Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, with performances like this, you would expect the guy to at least be like a top 3 pick come draft day, right? Well, not only did he fall off the top 3, Shai wasn't even a top 10 pick. And even worse than that, just as the Hornets drafted him with their 11th pick, they immediately traded him to the Clippers. I mean, talk about a front office failure. But this was really just a symbol of his NBA career, where he would spend every single moment as an underdog, going completely unnoticed by everyone around him. He was always going under the radar, and even though he was not that impressive in his rookie year, only averaging 10 points per game, he was secretly honing his craft wherever he could. After all, his idol was none other than Kobe Bryant.
Kobe is Michael Jordan, just on a steroid. You're talking about.
And the Mamba mentality was a way of life for SGA. His only problem is that the NBA world didn't care about him. If you would have asked anyone in 2019 for their opinion about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the answer that you'd probably be getting is, who? I mean, to the eye of the casual NBA fan, he was just a scrub. Not just to the NBA fans, actually, even teams' general managers didn't see much value in him. Just look back at the Paul George trade. When the Clippers wanted to get PG, they included SGA in the package. Now, obviously, at that time, you needed a bit more than our Canadian friend to make the Thunder accept the trade, but did they really need to add Danilo Gallinari, 2 first-round pick swaps, and 5 first-round picks? I mean, at that point, you probably could have just substituted Shai for a bag of chips. Still, in the early days of his career, it's not like SGA had much choice. He didn't have that superstar pull to be able to request a trade at a moment's notice. He wasn't a franchise player that had an entire team built around him. He was just that young guy that may or may not be in the league in 5 years. And he knew it, but that didn't bother him at all. He liked that position. After all, he could only go up from there, right? Lucky for SGA, though, the Thunder were in the middle of their post-Westbrook rebuild. So, in just his sophomore year, he was already a starter in the league. Oh, and he also had another guard at his side to mentor him, a certain Chris Paul. And with his killer mentality, SGA knew that an opportunity like this would only be given to him once. And boy, oh boy, is he ready to make the most of it. I mean, he grinded like crazy that offseason. He was prepared to show everyone his true colors. And so, in his sophomore year, SGA wasn't selected for the All-Star game. Yeah, guys, life isn't a movie. But still, he was already showing flashes of his genius. Like that time when the whole state of Oklahoma thought that Russ possessed Shai's body when the Canadian finished the game with 20 points, 10 assists, and 20 rebounds. I'm sure that in his head, his path to success was clear though. But as history has shown us, the NBA is a cruel world. Because, yeah, over his 3rd and 4th year, he was playing better basketball than ever. The problem is that he was rarely actually playing. Injuries had taken over, and he would miss nearly half of the games in this 2-year span. And a lot of people that had believed in him before were starting to have doubts now. Was he going to spend the rest of his career injury-prone? Was he going to take that leap to stardom? Was he going to be a bust? People were having their doubts, but Shai knew that these concerns were below him. After all, he knew that he was cut from the same cloth as his idol Kobe. Just listen to Shai defending him.
Steroids. You're talking about skills. What are you talking about? I'm talking about best player. Kobe has 5 rings. What's your argument? All around.
Yeah, a guy that's not scared to go into a serious basketball debate against a literal kid is definitely not going to be scared of injuries. For him, these were small obstacles that were just going to make his goals take a little bit more time to reach. And kudos to him, because his vision is entirely what came to fruition. In his 5th season, he was finally able to avoid injuries. And man, he really showed the NBA world that he had finally arrived. Beating the Portland Trail Blazers with a crazy buzzer beater game winner? Done. No more Dame time, it's Shai time. And talking about time, SGA didn't waste any. As just 2 weeks in, he got the Player of the Week award, with some absolutely crazy averages, by the way. 31 points per game, 5 rebounds, and nearly 6 assists. Pretty impressive, right? What if I told you that he held these averages for the entire season? Yeah. Of course, when you have a guy with a stat line like this, the only thing that you can do is be impressed and give him the all-star spot that he deserves. And so, on the 2nd of February 2023, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was selected in the All-Star team. He did it after 5 seasons in the NBA. Mission accomplished, right? He is a true Mamba successor, though, and in his words, he didn't slow down after the All-Star selection. Quite the contrary. Shai finished the season with 45 30-point games, setting a new record for foreign NBA players. Not bad for a guy that was used as trade filler. Oh, and don't think that he stopped there. This guy had the audacity to snatch a guard spot from the All-NBA first team for himself. How about all-time greats like Steph and Dame, you might ask? Well, they're just gonna have to make do with second and third teams, of course. Now, as Shai is starting to prepare himself for this upcoming season, we cannot go without talking about his performances with his national team. This last World Cup, he showed everyone that he not only was a monster on the court, but that he also was a true alpha and leader. He just wants to be Kobe. He was able to lead the way for his team and show them how it was done, carrying Canada to their first ever World Cup medal. Shai just continues to show us that writing history is as easy for him as just getting up in the morning. And not only that, but thanks to his incredible performances, he was able to get Canada into the Basketball Olympics for the first time in more than 20 years. Oh, and lest you think he just played against scrubs on their way to the bronze medal, SGA dropped 27 points on the French team led by Gobert and Batum. He then had a 31-point explosion to lead Canada past Slovenia, outplaying Luka Doncic and showing who was the true best non-American guard. And then, of course, the main dish. Him dropping 31 points and an astonishing 12 assists to beat the United States and stop them from getting a medal. Now, obviously, this got him a selection into the all-tournament team, all while leading all the players in the tournament in player rating. I mean, he came to this World Cup to show that he was the top dog when it came to guards, not only in the NBA, but also in FIBA, and he delivered. What's so crazy about him is how dedicated he is to his craft. Now, obviously, I've mentioned a couple times about his obsession with Kobe Bryant, but it seems like SGA's whole basketball persona revolves around the Black Mamba. Shai was lucky to be the same height as Kobe, so he made sure to try to incorporate the same style as him. Now, of course, he still hasn't reached that level that made Kobe stand out as one of the best players of all time, but when you realize that he's still in his 5th year, the sky's the limit for Shai. And what really sets Shai apart is not just his basketball prowess, but also his mentality. He approaches the game with the same relentless passion and drive that made Kobe who he is. The desire to be the best, to prove everyone wrong, and to leave an indelible mark on the sport is the essence of what makes a player truly great. You know, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander not only embodies these qualities, but seeing how he spent most of his career as this underdog that no one cares about, that's what pushed him to the max. With all the young talent that's going to be added to the Thunder squad this season, don't be surprised if you see them doing a serious push in the regular season. I mean, just think about it. If you have a guy averaging 31, 5, and 5 as the first seed, could you not give him the MVP? Well, we might get the answer to this question this upcoming season, so stay tuned, everyone. Shai's journey really should be an inspiration for all of us, even away from a basketball perspective. Just put yourself in his shoes for a second. This guy came in as a foreign guard that no one really rated. He continued being considered to be just a random player in the league for a bit. And just as he was starting to see his wings growing, he would end up injured. Talk about adversity, right? But still, he just focused on the teachings of his idol and made sure to get to the top of the guards pyramid. And now, what everyone's probably eagerly waiting for is to see if all this was a fluke, or if he's going to be fighting for the title of best player in the league. I personally think that it'll be taking the whole league by storm, but what about you guys? You think this is finally the season when Shai overtakes Steph and Luka as the best guard in the league? Share your thoughts down in the comments below, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.